We would like to move forward to our next panel discussion. It's a volume 2. It's a continuation of last year's discussion about investing in Greece and the shared service centers. So I would like to welcome on the stage Mr. Nikos Stamou, Mr. Christos Kourouniotis, and Mrs. Chryssa Markopoulou from EY.
Good morning, Kalimera. It is a great pleasure and honor for us to be here today at the third International Treasury Summit. I would like to thank the organizers, the board of the Hellenic Association of Treasurers for the invitation. In this short actually it's not very short to be precise. And time is running. So in the slides I have prepared, we're going to review, the agenda is make an introduction about the Enterprise Greece and our services, move on with a brief overview of the economic, business and investment environment, then touch on and focus on the GBS services drivers, why Greece, with a particular mention on human capital labor cost, then continue with the legal framework and incentives, just a brief overview, before moving on to the operating ecosystems. First of all, Enterprise Greece. For those of you who don't know us, we're the National Investment and Trade Promotion Agency. We are supervised by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And within the investment promotion sector, we offer a set of integrated and investment promotion and facilitation services. So within that perspective, we welcome foreign investors, providing information on the opportunities via an active portfolio of investments, a projects portfolio, what we call. It's mainly on the so-called, refers to the so-called productive investments, that is in energy, that is in tourism, that is in real estate, in manufacturing, etc. We also prepare customized investment proposals following a request from foreign investors that wish to deploy operations in Greece. We also provide information on the tax, basic information on the tax, legal, sectoral framework for investors interested. Also, we inform on investment incentives. We help investors identify suitable personnel and do also site location, something that is very relevant to the purpose of this forum and the ability of foreign investors to explore opportunities in GBS deployment in Greece. And also provide the extra services that you will see. And I'm sure that following the end of the forum, the presentation will be made available to look into more details, and feel free to inquire with us for any queries or potential interest. Now, a few words now continuing to the investment and business environment. Greece, like most of the world, like the whole world, has felt the triple crisis, that is the COVID crisis, that is the inflationary crisis, energy crisis, and also the supply chain crisis. But despite all these effects that have been influencing the global economy and Greece as well, Greece is transforming into a resilient nation with an exciting future, counting for another year another increase in GDP growth. It's nearly 6% for the last year, and at the same time having very positive signs in terms of FDI, whereas for the last year, in 2022, we have seen a record level of FDI at 7.2 billion and an increase of 35% relative to the previous year, to 2021. The same drive and the same outcome has also been within the export and the foreign trade part, where we have seen another increase in exports by 37% in the previous year. And this is a field that we've seen a consecutive increase in exports, not over the last year, but for the last 10 years, even the years of the financial crisis, the pre-COVID decade. Now, what is changing, what is happening? I'm sure that a lot of you have heard that a lot of structural reforms are being implemented in Greece in several fields, in terms of the public sector, in terms of licensing, in terms of regulatory framework, in terms of digitization. In this graph, we have, in this slide, we have summarized some that we think that are very particular and very important for the foreign investors. So what is important to keep in mind is the corporate tax reduction, that over the last few years we have seen a decrease of corporate tax by 6%, so it was down from 28 a few years ago, now standing at 22%. At the same time, dividend tax has been halved, now standing at 5%, and also employee contributions tax has also been decreased by 5%, now standing at 20%. Now, Greece is proving itself in this context a world champion when it comes to improving in business environment, with the details and with the progress we have seen, we've mentioned about before. So proof of that, the latest, one of the most recent Economist Intelligence Unit surveys for the business environment ranking, whereas compared to the fourth quarter of 2019 or compared to 2022, Greece has managed to increase its position by 16 rankings. At the same time, we also have seen the very important survey conducted by Ernst & Young, my colleagues following on the on the floor later on, whereas Greece is placed on the top 10 of investment destinations in Europe. Particular reference in the specific survey must be mentioned on the fact that 75% of foreign investors see Greece's positive perspective for improving the economy over the next few years, over the next 3 years, and also more than 70% of these investors pay particular reference in attributes like the digital, like the digital transport infrastructure, and also to the language skills and the availability of human capital. These are very important attributes relevant to the GBS Center development. So it is quite important to keep these two details in mind. Also, what's important to grasp from this survey is the fact that 37% of national investors, a growing percentage over the last 3 years, as you can see, has been replying that they will either develop in the next 12 months an investment project, or that they will either expand their operations if they're already present here. Greece, in this context, becomes a top investment choice for flagship investments, starting from fintech to artificial intelligence to pharma, to computer services, ICT, and many more, and expanding to a broad range of sectors, from companies and corporates spanning throughout the world, from the Far East to the Far North. We can see an influx of foreign investors in a broad range of fields, for like energy, manufacturing, technology, tourism, and many more sectors. Going now to the more specifics of the location drivers for GBS centers in Greece. Why Greece? Greece is, in a nutshell, what we can say, what's very important about Greece is Greece's geostrategic position in the region, its top quality human capital, its competitive labor cost, a supportive legal framework and incentives already set in place and being utilized by foreign investors, its high quality infrastructure in place, its modern cost-competitive office space options, its excellent climate and the living conditions, and being a full EU member state enjoying security, stability, and rule of law. Regarding the geographic position of the country, what's important to remember is that within a radius of about 3 hours flight time, or plus or minus 2 hours deviation in your clock, in your watch, what you can find is that you can capture an area, a potential area of customers of 2 billion people. That's 30% of global population and approximately 25% of global GDP in the same area. Also, you will find availability of highly skilled and multilingual human capital. These discrete statistics speak the full story. 25% of the working population aged 25 to 65-year-olds have a bachelor's degree, compared to an OECD average of 16%, so over by 9%. And also a quarter of them are STEM graduates. Also, what's important to remember and put in the picture is the fact that 60% of Greeks speak at least one foreign language. A foreign language, it is a very important and great skill, widely praised by investors. A more particular picture now. So from recent surveys, some selected indices from the Global Talent Competitiveness Index, we see that once again, the items we've been discussing before are particularly praised in these international surveys, and they rank Greece within the top quartile of the distribution and rankings of countries involved in the survey. On the availability of human capital, I think this slide showing the unemployment rates within tertiary education provides proof of the availability and why Greece is becoming more and more attractive in the foreign investment community for GBS development, whereas compared to all European countries, Greece ranks first, despite the significant 6% unemployment reduction we have seen over the last few years. Apart from the availability of human capital, competitive labor cost is another aspect sought by foreign investors. So in this context, what we see is that there's a great differential of the average wage price, great differential in excess of 40% for 2023, which has been consistent over the last few years, and despite the inflationary pressures felt in all economies and having an impact on wages, and also minimum monthly wage in Greece, despite its recent increase, it's still differentiated from the EU average by 18%. This is a quick slide. At your time, you can have a look on the sector we're discussing about, the finance and accounting, the broad range of salaries as printed by the latest Randstad report. Now, reaching to the upgraded legal framework and incentives, in a few words, we have a very flexible, modern legal framework with simple application procedure, fully electronic. The Ministry of Economy and Development is, Development and Investments is responsible for to receive these applications and to proceed that within a deadline of approval of approximately 50 days. The range of services span from R&D to software development, consulting, quality control, contact center. You'll see the full details there. And of course, accounting services are included within that context. And within the licensing, as said, it's a one-stop shop service. Now, a few words about the operating ecosystem. What we have seen over the last few years, we have seen many incoming, well-established corporates either touching ground on Greece or expanding their operations in the GPS sector. I believe most names are quite recognizable. Customer experience is a big part of this part, and also with reference to today's conference is the finance functions and accounting functions, which can be located in the 4 examples cited there. So I'm a bit ahead of the time that I was given, so I would like to thank you for your attention and be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
We will be co-hosting this specific session with Chryssa. So just a short explanation on why this year's session is called Volume 2. Last year, we were focusing a lot on selecting a country for establishing a GPS, a shared service center. And if you were not convinced last year that Greece is the right place to set up your shared service center, I think Nikos' presentation should have convinced you by now. So, assuming you are convinced that Greece is the right location, in this Volume 2, we will be focusing more on the practical aspects on how I can migrate my shared service center, part of my treasury function, to a service center in Greece or in any other place. One of the most common misconceptions is that I'm going to set up a shared service center in order to achieve cost efficiency. It might look like this is a triggering point because it attracts attention of the board and the finance department, but the reality is that to drive the standardization and to improve compliance appear in most of the cases to be the key elements that makes a plan of setting up a shared service center into implementing a shared service center setup. As Nikos was presenting the areas where Greece is scoring high in terms of factors that are considered for a group to decide and select in a location, it is important also to note that this is not a static case. So last year's survey of EY, that's an EU survey, the Greek survey on Greece attractiveness will be released early on October. The EU survey, and comparing the results of the survey with last year, indicate there is a shift of priorities. Priorities in terms of factors considered by a group in determining the location to set up, to make an investment, because this is actually reflecting foreign direct investment, not just shared service center decisions. So the outcome of this shift, my conclusion is that you don't just have to score as a country good, it's just one factor or two factors. You need to make sure that you score as high as possible in all factors. So infrastructure, availability of skillful resources, and also ESG approach of the country, which used to rank much higher. I think they were the first three priorities last year. They seem to be a little bit lower in priority for the year 2023 and the last survey conducted by EY on a pan-European level. So with that in mind, and hoping that the country selection has been decided, we will now move on practical aspects in actually setting up the shared service center.
Okay. As you can see in this slide, we have aggregated 12 critical considerations that we think that we should take into mind when setting up the GBS or a shared service center. From those ones, let me point out a little bit on the strategic intent. What are the vision for setting up? And this is something that has to be defined in the beginning, but also has to be followed, monitored, and targeted against during the whole implementation process. This requires, of course, a very strict and very keen program and change management so as to monitor the progress, but also to embed the change within the organization. I will take you to the rest of the items here through another view, which is actually the steps, what we understand as the critical steps in defining a shared service center in Treasury. We have 10 steps here, and we go one by one. So the first one is, what are the activities in scope? First, you define the activities.
Yeah. And for the specific one, I will be presenting the steps, and because of my background being a tax specialist, there is a tax perspective in such a step plan. So apart from selecting the part of the treasury function that you can actually migrate and outsource, you have also to consider the wider impact in the organization. And one of the tax impact, it's one of the areas that scares the most the board of directors that probably is going to take the final decision. So within that context, in our view, you need first of all to make sure you have a clear visibility of the role of the treasury function within the value chain of the organization. And I know that all of us believe that we know exactly what is the role of the treasury function, but this is evolving. So we need at all times to make sure that I understand the value I'm creating, whether there is an ESG contribution towards creating value from the Treasury Department. That was not the case a few years back. You need to factor this in and make sure that you have a clear picture of the role of the Treasury function in the value chain. Then the second step is to determine the contributions of the Treasury Department that actually make the Treasury function successful. It's important to identify these contributions, because then on step 3, you should cross-link the contributions with the processes or microprocesses of the Treasury Department that impact the factors that makes the Treasury function successful. Once you've done that, you will end up with a mapping on what are the key core activities of the Treasury function that if you actually move, you may have an impact, a significant impact on the taxable basis that you will be reporting in the organization. Or at least this is how tax authorities are likely to perceive that. So the idea is to define the core elements making a treasury function successful, to identify the impact of the processes, and then select the remaining processes that have minimal or no impact on the key drivers, and such processes can be migrated to a shared service center. Last step, it's a sanity check. So if you come up with this mapping and you end up with the different processes you can actually migrate to a shared service center, you need also to check what is left behind. Is the remaining part of the treasury function remaining behind sufficient enough to claim that you have the substance to support effective decision-making and the high-value contributions actually being taken at the core location? If you don't pay attention to that and you end up migrating also core functions, that's fine. It might make financial sense for the organization, but be aware that this may have also an impact on the taxable base and the tax reported by the organization as a whole. Ideally, you would end up in such a diagram with the red dots indicating areas that can easily be migrated to GPS, the purple dots indicating areas that we see actually more and more being migrated to GPS, so more second-level candidates, and you will end up also with areas indicated in the blue dots that actually are areas that are not to be migrated unless you are prepared also to consider a change in your taxation. This is an indicative list. The value of each process of treasury for an organization is different. It varies based on the industry, organization of the treasury department, and actually in terms also on the market trends. So, having decided on the activities that would be migrated, Chryssa will take us on how actually can do that efficiently.
And actually, combining with what Nikos discussed before on the location alternatives. So how we perceive this allocation alternative. It's a critical operation to be performed in the beginning. And when you do that, it's not a matter of short term. You have to encompass the growth vision of the company. It's a decision made today for tomorrow. So it's not a static decision. Also, on the do and don'ts that you can see on the slides, local skill set, it is something really, really important. And that's why Greece is an ideal location, as described before. On that, I would say that site visits has been involved also from our experience as a really important factor, because it's all about relationship at the end of the day. Desktop research can help to an extent, but local visit is there also to make really the impact on the selection. On the don'ts, on things to avoid, I would say that, first of all, location is not just real estate. It's a combination of taxation, legal skill set. So it's not perceived as a simple exercise. And the incentives that they provide are always there to give you the motivation to come, and maybe sometimes they can come to counterbalance some of the drawbacks in the location. So incentives are okay, are cherry on the top, as we say, but it's not the key driver for the selection. On the next step of the process, the important aspect is to identify the alternative sourcing options. And what do we mean by sourcing options? You see here a matrix, a quadrile actually, which has 3 dimensions. It's the risk, return, and the capital investment. You can recognize one of them on the top right, the outsourcing. Here we have a high risk and a high return with a low investment. We outsource the transactional processes and non-transactional, the typical and the more manual processes. And moving on the left bottom side of the quadrile, you can see the hybrid. This is a model when we outsource the more transactional, and we keep, as a business partner, inside the company, the more critical for the setup, for running the operation, and monitoring the activities of the GBS. The rest stand somewhere in between this quantile. Talking about next, how we actually design the workforce and talent planning. As said at the beginning, it is also part of the evaluation process during the location selection. Here, what we need to define as a company is how we will do all the organization design, part of the target operating model that we discuss also afterwards, the talent planning, how we will actually invest in those people, we develop the talent, we keep a very steady and learning and development program so as to motivate and keep these engaged into the service center. Step number 5. I would say that is the first part of the operationalization of the process, and we're talking about the target operating model. Having decided all the rest, we have decided the location, how we can do it. We're talking how we will set up the strategy, what we want to achieve, what is the vision, and how we will cascade this to the organization. Governance will be there, and the governance model will actually dictate all the ownership of the activities and will be the reference point for everyone in the organization. The organization model sets, it's more on the reporting lines, that's the structure and how we deliver and who is responsible for what. And here comes the delivery model, how you do the process and the sourcing of those. One step further down is the process framework. On the process redesign, of course, we have to look into the processes that we used to do, maybe as separate companies, look down into the processes and find the areas that used to be more manual, the areas that have a buffer for automation. This has to be done with an end-to-end mindset. It's better to, what we have seen also from our experience is when we see the process in the department, it's clear to identify the improvement points there, but it is also important to get all the players, all the involved parties in the process, in the loop, in the same table, identify the opportunities together, and make an end-to-end process mining that will help actually the whole organization to redesign and have a clear ownership on what has to be done. And that's important. Ownership is one of the aspects that during process redesign is key for evaluation and also creates more issues during the acceptance and the change management within the organization. Process redesign has two aspects for us. It has standardization and automation. Standardization is something that we have to locate actually. We have a global glossary, global processes, and that will be around the organization. If there is any need for differentiation, it's okay. We can revisit and actually document that this is different because there is a reason that there's different, but it's not a legacy reason. It's an actual business reason that it is valid and continues to be there. And automation is here. The tools are there, out there. We will discuss also later on. Tools are there to automate the manual processes and leave some time for the analysis that needs to be done.
Just one comment on processes. And redesign of processes is also an opportunity to manage in a better way the G part of the ESG. So looking and thinking about your governance, redesigning the process can also give you advantages to support the governance and control framework of your treasury function.
Sure, yes. And here it comes to the technology. We couldn't have this discussion here without talking about the technology. During the service center setup, we have the full set of tools, categories actually, that needs to be there, starting from the service management that governs the whole monitoring and the operations of the service center, the ERP, analytics, RPAs, process mining, until the newest trends, I would say, artificial intelligence and chatbot. They're all there to support automation, standardization, and leaving time for value-adding activities. Number 8, having said how we do all the operating model and how we can establish the technology and incorporate the technology, we go to the transition strategy. There are different models, and this is something that has to be really unique to the organization. So you can see 3 here, fix and then shift, which means I do the restructuring before, and then I go to the new centralized structure. Lift and amend, I have a bit, I redesigned before. I do on the existing tools, however. I lift, and then I amend, and then I shift to the new structure. And then it's lift, shift, and amend. So this is, they have their own advantages and disadvantages and have to be unique for organization. And this is something that it is part from the strategy. It's on the first day of the setup that you have to decide what is the vision, where I want to be, how can I be there, with the specifics of the organization. During number 9 and number 10 are two important aspects that will make sure that what we have designed at the beginning is still valid, and we monitor throughout the way. So, performance management framework. This is the whole framework governing the process of monitoring. So first one, we define the KPIs. And the KPI starts from the strategic, tactical, and operational. This is the set of KPIs that will make clear to everyone in the organization what is the target, what is monitor about, and make sure that abides by with. And having the KPIs, we can move on the left side of the slide, which is first, we define the service catalog. What is the services that we're actually providing? This is a detailed list, and it has to be detailed, so because we will see afterwards how we charge or not charge on that. The second step, determine the KPIs, and these are the KPIs that will help us also for the SLAs. The SLAs are the contracts that will help us discuss, operate, monitor, and negotiate with our clients. I'm leaving the most exciting part on the last. It's the financial management model, and up to Christos.
Yeah, just a comment here to be conscious that any shared service center is going to produce a charge for the rest, for the remaining part of the organization. So we need to have a transparent and efficient charging model that will allow budgeting process and impact on financials to be appropriately considered by remaining parts of the organization. Now, being cautious of time, I will just share with you one key takeaway, a learning from a GPS client of ours, who actually what they said is that you need to focus on realizing and establishing the GPS as a customer service model and not a complex cross-charge mechanism. So the idea is to really perceive the remaining part of the organization as a customer and start adapting processes and behavior in the mindset of serving a customer rather than aggregating and then allocating costs to the remaining part of the organization. That was from us.
Yeah.
So
we're a little bit out of time, but
a little bit.
try to aggregate as much as we can.
Thank you. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you.
Yeah.